So I hear that there's some Go featured in the new live action One Piece on Netflix. I never watched One Piece, so can't really say much about it. But apparently there's a scene with some Go in it, and it's funny how Go is so unknown that every time it appears somewhere, we get all excited and we go, "Oh, look, it's Go! It's the game that we play, that we love." What's also sad is the amazing looking kind of like documentary style, not documentary, like biopic style movie called The Match that was supposed to go out on Netflix. Unfortunately, is right now I have no idea what they're doing with that movie. But the movie is it was supposed to go over the game, the rivalry between Lee Chang-ho and his master Cho-Eun. And unfortunately, one of the lead actor who plays Lee Chang-ho, he was caught up in some kind of drug scandal. So there's some politics going on with the whole thing, and I don't know when or if the movie will be released, but I was looking so forward to that, and I'm so sad that there's stuff going on with it, and I just want to see it. I just want to see the movie. I don't care about the scandal. Just let me watch it. I really like watching Go on a screen, like shot beautifully in like the context of cinema. Which is why I want to get around to watching Knives Out. I heard there's some Go in that. Unfortunately, the Go in movies typically they're really terrible. There's I remember seeing a video on YouTube of chess grandmasters or experts, what have you, going over chess scenes in movies and pointing out all the mistakes. And one of the most common ones being the square, the chessboard not being oriented the correct way, where the white square should be on the bottom right corner, white is right, or sometimes the pieces are just completely set up wrong. But Go is it's another story. The games just do not look like they make any sense at all. They're like playing Connect 4 or something. And it's sad because it's so rare that we see the game featured in film, and then when it's featured in film, it's just wrong. Did you know that there is also a correct way to orient a Go board? It looks symmetrical in all directions, but if you look at a properly made Go board, you'll see that it's going to be longer one way than the other. You'll see, look at the squares that make up the grid, and you'll see that it's not a square, and that's because you're supposed to orient it so that you are seated along the longer side. How do I explain this? When you look at it, there's a amount of perspective that kind of squishes the board, right? Because you're kind of seated like across from it, and perspective will kind of squash the board to your eyes. So to kind of make up for that visual experience, the board is purposefully made a little longer one direction than the other, so that it squashes to kind of more of a square shape. Obviously, it's not going to be a perfect square, but like that's the concept, and that's why you'll see that the board is longer one way than the other. And I have seen, I don't know if it's like a movie or video or something where I've noticed this, where the board is oriented incorrectly, and you see that the board is like sideways, and no one would notice this, but a Go player. Another the most iconic, I feel like, Go scene in Western cinema is the one in A Beautiful Mind, where John Nash is playing against, I don't know who his opponent was actually, but they're in a park and they're playing Go, and it's the most like ridiculous scene ever. I'm sure the movie's great, but I've seen the scene multiple times just because I like looking at a Go board on film. It's just beautiful, even though the stones are all wrong and the scene doesn't make sense at all. It's beautiful. I like to like watch that. That's why I was so looking forward to the match. But if you haven't seen it, look it up on YouTube. It's kind of funny, right? Because they're clearly trying to set up this scene as like this checkmate moment where someone plays this move that's just so brilliant, and then the other person goes, I didn't see that coming. But it's really just like this massive Atari, like this just massive capture, and he captures the stones, or I don't know what he does. It doesn't really show the full shot, but I'm assuming that him putting the white stone in the middle of the black stones, hopefully I'm not mixing up my colors here, captures those stones. So it's just this basically a DDK mistake, and they kind of banter over the game, like, you know, they're supposed to be geniuses and everything. But it's funny because when you know what Go is and you understand what's going on the board, you're like, these guys are, what are they doing? And I've also come across recently, someone uploaded like a deleted scene also, where John Nash comes in to a room where a couple of the students are playing a game of Go, and then he just wipes the board clean and pushes all the stones off the table, and it's just so like, who would do that? That's ridiculous. It's also painful to watch someone just throw Go stones on. It's like, so you're supposed to take care of, you know, this equipment and stuff, and this is not like easy to come by. This is not cheap stuff, right? You can tell the stones are of some quality, and he just wipes them off the table, and they're just kind of like, hey, and they're like in the end game or something, it looks like. And there's like, what's your problem? And then he comes out and then he brings out this like hex, like what is it, like a diamond, like a rhombus shaped board, and he says something like, oh, by the way, the first scene, the one that actually is in the film, one of the most ridiculous things that he says is, I had the first move, my play was perfect, I should have won, or something like that. And when, as soon as you say that your play is perfect, that's when you know that as a Go player, that movie's kind of ridiculous in that one aspect, at least. I should probably watch the whole thing at some point, but I just really like watching that one scene and watching his head bob up and down, looking at pigeons and taking notes. But anyway, back to the deleted scene. He ruins the Go board, puts down his own invention of a game that looks like a rhombus grid of some sort, and he again reiterates that sentiment that he had expressed about the game earlier, and it says, I don't know, something. The person who deserves to win wins, right? Implying that in Go, the person who wins doesn't necessarily deserve it, and I think it's a bit of a mockery of our game, but I still appreciate that it's in the movie. You know what I mean? It's like weird. Like I have fun with it. Like, put the game in the movie. All right? Put Go in your movie, no matter how inaccurately you portray it. I appreciate that you put it in the movie. But I will laugh at you if you make comments like that. So, and I heard Knives Out is also not like the best portrayal, though. I think what my friend told me was that it was better than A Beautiful Mind, at least. So I'll have to check it out. But I mean, that comes to the realization for me that Go is a beautiful game. It's physically beautiful. It's something that I really like to look at on screen, and I don't know. There's something so primal about putting these little black and white stones on a Go, like a piece of wood, essentially. I was at there's a store called Book Off with my girlfriend the other day, and it's kind of like this secondhand ish store. It's Japanese, so you would expect, some Japanese stuff. They have like anime figurines and a whole, shelf full of manga, but they also have a lot of other, fiction, history, nonfiction, all that stuff. They have all sorts of things. But I've never seen anything related to Go there other than like a couple of volumes of Hikaru no Go. But this last time that I visited, I was so shocked to find an actual book about Go. And it was in this tiny section, and it was categorized in the like language and logic section or something. I don't know what it was. It was like it was just clearly not the right section for it, but I found it. And the book, I hadn't even heard of it before. I thought I've heard of like most of the big Go books. This one's called Winning Go. Successful moves from the opening to the end game. And it's by Richard Bozelich. I hope I'm not saying his name incorrectly. And Peter Shotwell. And you may recognize those names. Richard Bozelich is known for the Get Strong at Tsuji book. And then Peter Shotwell, I have a book of his called Go More Than a Game. It's a good introductory book. And this book, Winning Go, it's pretty cool looking. It's got this like red and white schema with the board, just kind of like a rendering of the Go board, stretched across the book. It looks nice, and it's in 2010, so it's pre-AI stuff. But I plan to kind of leaf through it. It looks like it covers basic concepts for people who kind of have an initial understanding of the game. So like coming out of the beginner phase. But I always like reading, beginner books because, they always say certain books are for beginners, and it's always so not, because Go is so hard that like when people try to explain things in books about Go, the authors often forget how little the reader may know, and they just kind of assume certain. They're like, you often read a book and you read something like, so this is why you don't want to go here because this shape is terrible, right? And then they move on, and you're like, no, I don't know what do you mean this shape is terrible? Why is that terrible? And it's like, this result is horrible for black, and you're like, is it? Oh, that was news to me. And you have to do some of your own due diligence to kind of dig up what is the why the author said that, right? And it's really hard to teach Go ground up from a fundamental level. You have to do your own learning at some points. I have too many books. I had to get this one though. I had to buy this one because it was $1. And well, actually my girlfriend bought it for me, so thank you. But yeah, I like having Go books. I don't think that they're the best for improving your game. If you're trying to find ways to improve the game, I can't say that I would recommend to that person read a lot of Go books. I think that consuming Go media like YouTube and reading books and things like that, it gets you kind of on the right track in order to cover some mistakes, right? You play certain Go players and they haven't cracked open a single book by the way they play certain Josekis or whatever. They they don't watch YouTube videos on how to play Go because of the moves they play. So it helps with certain normalization of what you're supposed to do, in a very general sense. In my opinion, that's kind of what it helps with. But overall, you're not going to get leaps and bounds of improvements just from reading books and watching videos. What I've been trying to do is, the videos that I've been watching, I've been trying to put them on a real board and play out the sequences over and over again, practice reading, right? Things like that. If you're just kind of mindlessly leafing through and just consuming the media as it comes, I don't know. It's arguable, like, or I'm not sure how much benefit you'll get out of that, like how much measurable success you'll get out of that. But if you have like a Tsuji book and you're sitting there working through the problems, then you're actually trying to understand every situation, then yeah, I think that definitely has value. Last week I talked a lot about winning and why it feels good to win and why it's important to try to win in order to put value into your games. But this week I want to talk a little bit more about the other side, which is improving. Because we improve to win, but sometimes we don't play to win, we play to improve. When I was trying to get back in, because I go through phases of Go where I kind of take breaks and I take it easy, or I kind of get a little bit drained. I get discouraged by some kind of loss or losing streak, and I may take a break. I may take a step back, or I may get back into it. I may see something and I may want to. I have that fire in me again to improve. And when I was trying to get back into the game at some point, I was kind of anxious about playing games. And this wasn't a new feeling, but I was like kind of like I didn't really want to play. I didn't want to queue up for a game because I was scared of losing, or scared of what would happen, what the game might reveal about me. And it's funny because I remember sometimes clicking the queue up button, the play button. And there was a part of me that I recognized that I didn't want to be matched with anyone. And it's like I'm forcing myself to play. And like I kind of understood that I did need to force myself to play in order to improve, but it's like, why am I forcing myself to play this game in order to be better at a game that I have to force myself to play? I didn't have an answer for that. I just kept on doing what I was doing, and I just kind of played. I mean, once the game started, it was usually better, where I was kind of having, I was in the zone, that kind of flow state, which is all what partly, one of the biggest reasons why I play. When you're playing the game, the whole world melts away. You're just looking at the stones, and they're just so interesting, and everything is so interesting on the board, and it's really fun. It's really fun. But sometimes in the beginning, when you're trying to start the game, you can kind of get in your own head, and you may not want to play because you have some kind of ladder anxiety. So when I was trying to get back into the game, and I realized that I wasn't playing enough games, I realized I needed more experience. That whole lose your 50 first games or 100 first games as fast as you can thing, I don't think that really stops being a thing. You shouldn't, because the whole point of that, what that saying is for, is because when you look at a beginner player and you see that they're stressed about winning or losing games, you know that that's silly because they don't even know how to play. And they need to play games. And that's why you stress, like, lose the games, right? So that they don't get caught up about winning or losing, because they need to play stones on the board and understand how they behave and observe how they move and interact with each other. And so that's why we say things like lose your first 100 games. But I don't think that stops becoming a thing. And so when I noticed that I wasn't playing enough games in order to improve my game, I decided, hey, I'm going to treat these games like reps, exercises. I'm not going to care about winning or losing. And that kind of goes against everything I was saying last week about winning, but that was what was needed in order for me to really see why I was playing at that moment. And thinking of it as like just exercise and gaining experience really helped me just dive into every game without worrying about ranking up or down, winning or losing, and just realizing that every game is going to be so randomly like very varied. You're going to have good days and bad days, and you're going to be matched with a plethora of opponents at any given rank, right? The ranking system is not perfect. It's not going to give you perfect matches all the time. You're going to have people who are much stronger than you, much weaker than you. It's really a roll of the dice when you queue up for a game. And so you shouldn't put too much emphasis on trying to win or lose that day. And so by putting this like mentality on, this training mentality on when I'm playing my games, it helped me take my games a lot more casually. It helped me kind of just have fun and just play my games out and enjoy my time playing the game, and just kind of realizing that part of this is just some practice for improvement. And that helped me play a lot more games, and I was able to just kind of jump in every time. And once I got used to jumping in every time, I got less anxious about playing the games, and I just felt really casual to me, and I just enjoyed it. But then what happens is eventually I may get a little more invested, and then I start to care about winning or losing, and the anxiety comes back. So it's a battle. You have to understand yourself. You have to be aware of what you're going through in your own head as you're approaching the games. But yeah, it's and it also helps that I've been focusing more on faster games rather than like long, serious ones. There's a lot to be said about whether it's better to play fast games or slow games. And I'll definitely cover that in a future episode because I have a lot to say about the time control on games that you should be playing. But it's something I recommend if you have experienced some kind of ladder anxiety, rating anxiety. And if it's like your account that's bothering you, just make another account and just dive in and try to mess it up, and don't get attached to that account more than you got attached to your first account. Which is why I don't think that it's really necessary to create another account. I think I haven't created a secondary account, at least not yet. Just dive in, just play, right? It doesn't matter. Like whatever happens on the screen that day, whatever happens during your game, like it's going to balance out eventually. Like you have a strength within you that is constant, and it's something that you have that can't be changed by external forces. And just because you lose a game one day or two or three or four and so on, that doesn't change your skill level. Your skill level is a constant thing, and it's going to be reflected in your results eventually. And so just focus on building up that inner sense of improvement, and try to take things in a fun way. You never know what happens. I think that's part of the joy, is that you never know what kind of game you're going to get into. You never know if you'll get this long drawn out end game oriented game, or if you'll get this massive kill in the beginning. If you'll get someone who rages and quits really early on. It's all fun to me. I think it's part of the fun of just playing random games. And I think like when I went to my first tournament, I was a little nervous, as you would probably imagine. And after the tournament, I realized, you know what? Playing Go in person or at a tournament, like in a serious context, is really nice, and it's really like a cool, eye-opening experience. But it made me realize how much I love just kicking back, relaxing, clicking the stones on the board without the pressure, and just having fun. And I know it sounds totally different from what I said about how important it is to want to win. It's not that I don't want to win when I'm playing casually, right? When I'm playing casually, I still want to win really badly, but it's different. It just feels different. There's less at stake, and you can want to win and also be casual at the same time. And yeah, so I think that's gonna do it for today. How about question of the day, question of the week? For this week, if you may want to share, do you experience any kind of ladder anxiety? What have you done to overcome that? What other experiences have you had dealing with your hesitance to play Go? Have you gone through periods of time where you didn't like playing Go? There's a lot of questions of the week. Feel free to answer, discuss anything we've talked about, or bring up new stuff that we haven't talked about. I need ideas for future episodes. So keep the feedback coming. I really appreciate every one of you listeners, and I hope you guys are all having fun playing Go. So keep playing Go, and I'll see you next time.